Welcome to the follow-up podcast on Base 10 and Base 2 number systems. This is Base 10 and Base 2, Part 2. In this podcast, we want to be able to change a number from Base 10 to Base 2 and to multiply a Base 2 number by a power of 2. Let's begin by changing from Base 10 to Base 2. Example 1 says change 329 base 10 to base 2. Now, the way we're going to do that is this. We'll write down the 329, and then we're going to repeatedly divide it by our new base 2. And while doing that, we're going to keep track of our remainders after each division. And the key to writing this in base 2 is going to be these remainders. So we begin. 2 goes into 3 once with 1 left over. 2 goes into 12 6 times. 2 goes into 9 4 times with 1 left over, so I put a remainder 1 over here. Divide by 2 again. 2 goes into 1 no times, but it goes into 16 8 times, and 2 goes into 4 2 times with none left over, so I put a 0 here. 2 goes into 82 41 times with none left over, so I put a 0 here. 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 1 no times, but there's 1 left over, so I put a 1 over here. 2 goes into 20 10 times with none left over. 2 goes into 10 5 times with none left over. 2 goes into 5 2 times with 1 left over. And finally, 2 goes into 2 once. Now, as soon as you reach a point where the bottom number is smaller than your base, you stop. By the way, 2 goes into 2 once with none left over. Now, your base 2 number is found by using these numbers. Start with the bottom number, then in reverse order, write out your remainders. And so we get for our number, base 2, 1, 0, 0, 1 0 1. That's this part. Then 0 0 1 0 0 1. So 0 0 1 0 0 1. Now, just to remind you of how we evaluate these things, each of these numbers is multiplied by a power of 2. 2 to the 0, 2 to the 1, 2 to the 2, 2 to the 3, etc. 2 to the 0 is just 1, 2 to the 1 is 2, 2 to the 2 is 4, 8, 16, 32. Each time we're multiplying by 2, so 32 goes to 64, to 128, to 256. So this number has 1, 1. It has no 2's and no 4's, but 1 8. It has no 16's and no 32's, but 164. It has no 128's, but it does have 1 256. And so this number would be 10 plus 9 is 19. 7 and 5 is 12. And carrier 1, 329. So that is really the base 10 number. 101 001 001 base 2 is the same as 329 base 10. Okay, now second example. How do you take a base 2 number like 1101 base 2 and multiply it by a power of 2 like 2 squared? Well, if I took a base 10 number, let's say 356, and I multiplied it by 10 squared is 100. When you multiply by 100, you add 2 zeros, so you'd get 35,600. Does the same thing happen base 2? Well, it turns out that it does, but you don't multiply by powers of 10, you multiply by powers of 2 if your number is base 2. Now let's take a look at what this number is. This first digit here says 1 1. No 2's but 1 4 and 1 8. So this is the number base 10, 13. And I'm multiplying it by 2 squared, so I'm doing 13 times 4, so I should get 52 if this works the way we think. So if I'm multiplying by a power of 10, I add that number of zeros to the end, and my claim is if I'm multiplying by a power of 2, I add that number of zeros to the end of this number. So this number would be 1101, and then because of the 2 squared, 0, 0. Now remember that in order for this to be right, this number has to equal to 52. So let's see if it does. This says no ones, no twos, but 1 4. No eights, but 116 and 132. And we add them up. 10 and 2 is 12. 2 and 3 is 5. We do indeed get the number 52. So for example, if I took this number, let's say 11011, and that's in base 2, and I wanted to multiply it by 2 to the 4th, or 16, all I would have to do is add 4 zeros. So I would get 11011, the original number, and then since that's 2 to the 4th, I'd add 4 zeros, and that would be my product, base 2. And that completes the Base 2 and Base 10 Number Systems podcast.